All right,
A
gamers.
true
Today I'm going to
lesson
be
of the
bringing you a
void.
14 stone vaults with commentary as well. We have more of the usual crew with our Prot Warrior, Retribution Paladin, Enhancement Shaman, and a Pug Resto Shaman Healer. We're going into this first pull, pulling the Golem and everything in the hallway. This is a pretty standard pull in hierarchies. I've also seen tanks pull the left Golem pack as well. I'm not really sure how to do that. That is tank tech. There's a way that it gets pulled and none of the mobs are casting. So that's one way to save a good portion of time here at the beginning. That way all of these mobs die at the same time. But we decided to just pull this slow. And now we're going into the pack on the left with the golem. There's not a lot of stuff going on right here. The robot that leaps around, you just have to dodge. We have to make sure that we get kicks, and we have to make sure that you use the defensive when that ground stomp comes out.
I simply wish you had lasted a
This is
little
a
longer.
run from a couple of weeks ago. I don't have the ability tracker, and I'm also a night elf still in this key, and I'm pretty sure this was around the Day of the Dead, so like 3 weeks ago. Anyways, we're pulling the right golem pack. There is a decurse that needs to happen. We need to make sure that we're using a defensive on a slam if we're low. Also, Windwalker Monk can use diffuse magic to take the dot off from the slam, and it will definitely help out a lot. Here we're pulling both of the golems into the doorway so that way we can LOS the slams. That is something that you can do on the inside of the room on the side pillars, or you can use this doorway as well. There you see me moving off to the left to dodge one of the ground slams, but I'm just going to go ahead and take the other one because I have my defensives up. I can actually see how I played a couple weeks ago because I'm saving my cooldowns here. Now in my keys, I play a little bit more aggressive and just send cooldowns quite frequently.
What's this? Is that golem fused with something else? Titanic earth and technology enhanced with
Going into this first boss, something that you have to discuss with your healer is how many pillars you want to break on each slam, and that's just something that varies from healer to healer. Then they have their own cooldown set up for each set of pillars. That way you don't die. So here, the tank actually calls out that we're going to be doing 3 pillars on this first one. So you probably want to pop a defensive here. We're going to be doing 0 pillars on the next one. So going into this one, these pillars are not going to get broken. And then we're going to do 3 on the last one. Something that you can do as a melee comp is to make sure that you're stacking behind and a little bit further off of the boss. That way the pillars spawn kind of clumped. There, all 3 pillars exploded, but we had Spirit Link, so we were able to survive. You can also see how we're moving off of the boss and stacking, and the pillars are nice and tight. It makes it a lot easier for the person breaking the pillars. We have another set of spikes there. The healer decided to only break 1 pillar there. We're going to be taking 3 pillars here as well, and I went ahead and used diffuse magic to take some of that damage off. I really don't remember this key, and for some reason I forgot to upload it. 3 weeks ago, a plus 14 Stonevaults was actually very hard. I think Stonevaults is probably one of the harder keys for this season. Probably say Stonevaults and Grim Batal are going to be your lowest keys completed this season. Everything else is relatively easy. I think these are especially hard in pugs because of the first boss and the tank dispel, as well as people not coordinating their defensives on the different pillar clears, which makes this dungeon very hard. And of course, Grim Batal is pretty tough for pugs, especially with that first big pull and a lot of the mechanics and damage that goes out in that key. Whereas some of the other dungeons like Dawnbreaker, those seem to be a lot easier to do in pugs. This boss is almost dead. We're just going to go ahead and kill it here. We managed to kill it before the slam goes out, which is always good. I don't remember if we're going to pull everything in this initial area. It looks like we don't. I have seen some tanks pull this pack and the other pack to the left of us, and that seems like a pretty okay pull as well. You just have to be ready for it, and your healer has to be ready for it as well. This pull can be tough because you're just coming out of the boss and you don't have that many cooldowns. I think in a more coordinated group, you can discuss whether you want to pull the whole room or not, based on what the cooldowns are looking like and how quickly you kill the first boss. We're going to go ahead and pull the elemental into the pack that's just like the howler pack that's standing there. There are a couple of kicks that need to go off. You want to make sure you're kicking the speakers, and I'm pretty sure there are bolts that go out. The piercing howl needs to be stopped as well. Yeah, so this pack has 3 kicks that you have to get. All of them have to pretty much be stopped. Otherwise, they could one-shot someone on the team. But other than that, I mean, this dungeon is pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of route variation that you could do here. Pretty similar to what people do on lower keys as well. Going into this one, there is a lot of damage that can go out here. We have the Despoiler and the 2 Howlers. You want to make sure that you get stops on those, and you also want to use a defensive for that Void Burst. It can do a lot of damage. Here, our Ret Paladin used everything that he had to melt this pack down, and this one really wasn't a problem for us. I've seen a lot of tanks try to chain that 3-pack into one of these two, and most of the time it doesn't end well because that pack in the back never really fully dies, and it just kind of messes with the timings of these kicks and that void burst, and it ends up wiping groups. So I really wouldn't recommend that. There are other places where you can make up some time. Here, it's just about making sure you get the stops and you are staying healthy and using defensives pretty aggressively, because these void outbursts do a ton of damage. As you can see, it killed our red paladin there. I'm pretty sure he just wasn't expecting it, or the healer wasn't expecting it either, but that's just something that comes with just playing with a pug healer. Here, we just have to avoid the purple swirlies, just have to be careful, and you also need to get 2 kicks here on both of the invaders. Pretty much more of the same. Watch your feet and just get kicks. So going into Skarmorak, this boss is pretty challenging, and I think it's very challenging in pugs as well, because groups struggle with killing the correct crystals on time, and sometimes they end up killing 2 crystals at the same time. On the lower keys, that's okay, but on anything, I'm sure past the 12, killing 2 shards without having the healer be ready for it can pretty much wipe your group. It's a lot of damage coming out in a short period of time. So the goal here is to make sure that you're killing those crystals and you're picking up those purple orbs. The more purple orbs you have, the more damage you do during this shield phase. That way you get through that void burst as quickly as possible, because it does do a ton of damage. So there we also had the lust, and we were just able to burn through the shield. We're going to go ahead and kill these crystals. You can't hear this, but in comms, we were calling out which crystals we're going to. That's another big benefit of playing with the group, is just being able to coordinate things like this, and it just makes stuff a lot easier. So we're just melting these crystals, slowing down a little bit because the healer needs to catch up. Another shard down. Now we're going towards the X, killing this shard as well, and we have a couple of purple orbs here to collect. I have 4 purple orbs, and this shield should melt pretty quickly here. You can see in the bottom right me climbing at the DPS meter. You really have to pick up these purple orbs. Something you can do in a more coordinated group is, if someone has cooldowns for the shield that's coming up, you can have them grab the majority of the purple crystals. But if you're in a pug, it's a pretty good idea to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, picking up at least 2 to 3 of those purple orbs, and using a defensive as well, because the purple orb on top of the shards exploding can do a ton of damage. Also, something I've noticed in pugs, everyone seems to always want to kill every single crystal that's out there. You don't have to do that. If you leave one crystal up, it just makes the shield a little bit bigger, but that's pretty much it. What you want to avoid at all costs is the channels happening. He's breaking the crystals, and you run over there, you last minute kill 2 crystals, and 2 people die. There's no point in doing that. It's a lot easier just to leave 1 or 2 crystals up and just burn through the shield with the purple orbs. And then it is to panic kill 2 shards at the same time and lose 1 or 2 people. I've seen that happen time and time in pugs. You just don't have to do that.
1.
Look for a service tunnel nearby. You should be able to take a mine cart.
So now our tank is communicating with us. He's going to pull these all the way back. There are a lot of kicks here, and the mech guys do the leap. So you want to make sure that you're avoiding those swirlies. You want to make sure that you're burning through this pack as fast as possible. There's not a lot here. Also want to make sure that you're stopping some of those leaps because you want to keep those mobs clumped up for as long as possible. That way you can get the most damage in on them. This pack is almost dead. We just have a couple of kicks left. This hallway is very dangerous for tanks. If they're not careful and they overpull, they can die. So as Windwalker, make sure that you're keeping an eye on the tank's health and you're using the Ring of Peace in a defensive manner to make sure that you're helping your tank stay alive. So now we're pulling a ton of these forge hands into the loader as well. The loader puts a dot on you that you want to make sure that you have a defensive for, and these forge hands can really mess your tank up. So I'm pretty sure it's the concussive slam, and if a couple of them align at the perfect time, they can kill your tank. So here he calls for a Ring of Peace to make sure to get these forge hands off of him, and we're still being mindful and avoiding the frontal from the loader. This pack is also deceptively dangerous because your group could have used a ton of cooldowns on that first pack, and same thing with your tank. Maybe you don't have some of those big defensives anymore, so you just have to be careful here. Get these stops on both of the menders and make sure that your tank is nice and healthy and isn't going to get one shot by the forge hands. Now we're going to go into the room. We're waiting for the pat in the middle to move a little bit closer to the right. Tank's going to go ahead and leap, and this is another very, very dangerous pack for the tank. I've seen tanks get one shot here quite frequently. There are 3 kicks that need to happen here on all 3 menders, and the same thing with the forge hands. You want to make sure that you can help the tank stay alive as best as you can by using different stops and different abilities like Ring of Peace to keep these guys off of him. We're doing a pretty decent job in burning this pack down. I ended up getting my cooldowns a little bit later in this pack. This pack honestly just got vaporized by the Ret and the Enhancement Shaman. Now we're going to pull the pack to the left with the Menders and the Forge Hand. And we'll be pulling that into the pack near the furnace on the right. I went ahead and got that kick. You can LOS right here in this corner, and they will stack up nicely like they are here. My Ring of Peace is up, so if the tank calls for it, it's ready. You want to make sure that we get some kicks here. As you can see, I Ring of Peace there to play it safe. Make sure that our tank is staying nice and healthy. This is more of the same. Make sure that you're getting kicks on Menders, and you're also killing these Forge Hands as well. Here, you can pick up a Verse buff, which I think you need blacksmithing for. It's just a free buff. It's good for everyone, does more damage. There's no point into not getting it. Pretty sure we got it in the top right somewhere. Yeah, I can see it. It's a 10-minute buff. Here, this is a small pack right before the boss. We just have a couple of speakers and some menders. Just make sure that you're getting kicks here and as many stops as you can, and just melt the pack. I'm holding my cooldowns for the boss. Now I would probably send these. This is something that I've learned the more I've done these dungeons and playing with the same group. I can kind of learn our damage profile and when we have different things. And I communicate a lot better in my group as well now than I did 3 to 4 weeks ago. And it makes it a lot easier to know when to send cooldowns, when to save them. Sometimes you want to save them, sometimes you don't. And it's just making sure that you communicate with your group. And if someone else sent on a pack, you just don't want to overlap that and just waste, 10 or 15 seconds of your cooldown on something that's pretty much already dead. On this boss, there is a couple of things that you have to look out for. The big robot guy does a frontal orb thing that you just have to dodge. And Brock, the caster, controls these vents on the side, and you have to get a range kick on him. The big block that goes down the middle, if it gets chosen for the caster, it goes all the way through. If it gets chosen for the big mech, he ends up stopping it. The block explodes. It does a ton of damage, and it shoots out those fire lava things everywhere. So that's just something you have to keep an eye out for. When the block goes through the middle, no damage happens, so you don't have to use a defensive. You only really have to use a defensive when the big mech guy stops the cube and it explodes. So now it's just more of the same, making sure that we're using defensives on the cube explosions, staying out of the vents, not walking into the fire, and making sure that we're avoiding the frontal from the big mech guy. So my cooldowns are back up, but I'm not going to use them because this boss is pretty much almost dead. I'll have cooldowns for the dangerous hallway before the last boss. I think our time is pretty good. We killed the third boss at 2350. It gives us 10 minutes and 30 seconds to get to the last hallway and the last boss down. The last boss does take a lot of time because you have to run off, and especially if you're a full melee comp, there isn't a lot of uptime that you can have on this boss, so you just have to be careful. A nice trick for both of these guards. We actually got a very good pat here and pulled the elemental rock guy, but a nice trick for these guards is to make sure that you're pointing those frontals left and right into each wall. That way they don't fly out like they did just now, because you want to make sure you have as much uptime as you can on these guys. It'll just end up helping you kill it a lot faster. This is something that you see further down the hallway. There is a staircase. You never want to pull the smasher on the staircase because the brown swirlies will get mixed in with the staircase and you won't be able to see them. So here we're just making sure we're pointing the guards at the walls. Now we're going further down the hallway. We have another set of 2 guards and 2 menders that we're going to get kicks on. We also ended up pulling 2 more stone shapers and another mender. This pack is very dangerous because there are 5 kicks that go out, as well as 2 guys doing the frontal charges, and you also have to make sure that you're killing totems. So this is a very, very dangerous pack. I have no idea how we ever live any of this with the amount of bolts and stuff that goes out here, but you just try your best. You make sure you get as many stops as you can. If you have cooldowns for this pack, I would recommend sending them here, because this pack right here can make or break the key. I think this is probably one of the harder pulls in this dungeon, just as a group, whereas some of the other pulls that we did earlier are just more dangerous for the tank. Now we just have the mender alive and the 2 guards. I'm looking down at my damage and it looks pretty bad, but we do have some monk buffs coming on Tuesday. I'm pretty excited. A lot of people have asked me if the buffs are good or not. In my opinion, any buff that we get is always good. Until I play the buffed version on Tuesday with the talent changes, it's hard for me to know. You can make some rough estimates, and I'm pretty sure the monk Discord, Babylonius, already made an announcement post, and from what I can see, he says it's going to be about a 4 to 5% increase in single target, which is good because we do very good single target in keys and in raid as well. And he said slightly more in AoE, so about 5% more in AoE. With the nerfs to some of the high-end classes and the buffs to us, this should put us more in the line to be somewhere in the middle for classes. Pretty happy with that, but more keys to come next week, and I'll be streaming them. I'm really excited to play Flurry of Zuen as well. I think it'll be good overall. Anyways, now we killed that left smasher pack. Nothing too exciting. We're also pulling this right smasher pack as well. Just 2 kicks that have to go out, and dodge swirlies on the ground. Use a defensive when that slam piles up. So that Smash Rock ability does more damage the more of the debuff that you have. So now, if you look at the debuff bar, I have 4 of the rock debuff. So if I get hit with the slam now, I'm most likely dead. So you just have to make sure that you kill these guys before the slam does too much damage. We're going into the last boss with about 5 minutes remaining, which is plenty of time. On this boss, it's very, I guess, methodical. You just have to play safe. If you're in a coordinated group, you can cycle as to who gets to clear the dot first, and that could be reliant on who has and who doesn't have defensive cooldowns. All you do is you run the purple circles out, and you want to make sure you keep the middle of the room clear, dodge the frontals from the boss, and you make sure that you clear the dot off of you as fast as possible. Otherwise, the dot will just kill you over time. I'm pretty sure it's like a ramping damage thing, so the longer you have it, the more damage you end up taking. So here I had Karma, so when I had used it, I'm not going to clear mine because I think someone else in the group called that they need to clear theirs first. So I waited a little bit and also popped another defensive as well. Here, this is another case of a last boss in the dungeon, similar to Arakara, where it's not so much as the difficulty of the boss, it's about making good decisions and just playing safe. We still have 3.5 minutes to kill this boss. We still have Lust up, so there's no point in being greedy. There, I went ahead and Transcendence back onto the boss. That's something that you can do as well every 40 seconds-ish to help you get more uptime, which is very, very valuable on this boss. As a melee character, you barely get any uptime on him. As soon as you come back, as soon as you pop your cooldowns, you have to run out and either clear your dot or clear the purple circles. I don't remember if 3 weeks ago this boss was nerfed or not. I'm pretty sure at some point they decreased the amount of dots and circles that go out, because this fight is just kind of annoying. Now the boss is at 10%. We still have 2 more minutes in the here. I just end up greeting it, not even moving out my purple circle. I almost screwed my friend there with the frontal placement, but we ended up killing the boss here. 2 minutes remaining. Thank you guys for all of the support. We're super close to 1,000 subscribers. I can't believe it. That is awesome. And hopefully these buffs turn out really well. So if you want to support the channel, feel free to drop a like and subscribe.